another video that's part of my Read and Discuss with Me segment. Here I take famous literature and I analyze it, talk about the themes, the writing, etc. The segment assumes that you've already read the piece, so it contains spoilers, so beware of that before you go ahead. I am a student, and even though I've not done any of this in school, I aim to help you pass whatever paper you have or just to satisfy your interest. Books, poems, other literary pieces, reading them is my passion, and I've recently started this booktube channel, so if you could go check out my other content if you're interested, your support would be very greatly appreciated. That's enough about me. Let's talk about Walt Whitman's deathbed edition, Song of Myself, 1892, contained in this volume, Leaves of Grass. This is one of my favorite pieces of all times because I think there's so many things that you can focus on. It's very interesting to look at. Today is my first time talking about poetry, and I'm honestly a little overwhelmed. Song of Myself contains 52 sections and there's so many words that one can latch onto. So of course I cannot cover all of them, and I aim to have my segment videos be in under 15 minutes. So you'll have to excuse me and know that not everything is contained in this video, although a very good portion of it, I'm proud to say, is. Let's start with talking about particularly curious sections, then move on to the broader meanings, and I'll end with a few interesting tidbits about Walt Whitman. This is the opening line of section 1. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume, you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. This has led to many people assuming that the poet is egocentric, and they've criticized Walt Whitman for this. In a way, it is, but when Walt Whitman says myself, he also means you, the reader, and everyone else in the world. So in a way, it's a sword with two sharp ends. So when he says me, he means you, and when he says you, he means me. And so what he assumes, we shall assume, and what we shall assume, he shall assume. And obviously the atom thing, that every part of his body is part of our body and vice versa. So even though the song title is called Song of Myself, it is a song about all of us. Another thing is that, as you can see, he already utilizes first and second person pronouns quite a lot. Just an important note that we don't call authors by their name, we usually just say the narrator. However, in this case, in section 24, he mentions that he's Walt Whitman, so I don't think you will be penalized and lose any marks if you say that the narrator is Walt Whitman and vice versa, but do be careful just in case. In section 2, he revels in the feeling of being alive, the sexuality of breathing. In a house and room full of perfume, I think we can take it as a metaphor for the world and the many textures that it's filled with. He says, he breathes the fragrance of himself and knows that he likes it. He wants to go to the bank by the wood and become undisguised and naked. He is mad for it to be in contact with me. Well, him. If you're thinking that, wow, this is rather amorous, this is not the only part of the poem. In a myth like this, he was considered quite scandalous. As another little side note about the poem, note that it's written in free verse, which is quite unique already. This is also significant in the regard that it matches the atmosphere of the poem well. It allows Whitman to vary the lengths of his lines and the rhythm, the way that the poem tastes in your mouth when you say it. He can talk about his views without worrying if it fits the structure of his poem that he's chosen. He's not limited. For example, it's a hobby of mine that when I'm bored, I like to make up haikus that have no real depth or meaning. Rather, their purpose is to occupy my mind with thoughts of language and syllables because I find it interesting. So yeah, for example, I stand with the others, wait for the hunger to cease. Sandwich queues are long. So obviously I have to choose my words carefully, but Whitman, he is not caged by the 575 haiku rule. His style is direct and relaxed. He talks about a lot of things in the world, and the freedom of his composition perfectly represents the wild nature of the world around us. Another notable thing about section 2 is that he asks us a lot of things. He is intrigued by us even though he is us. For example, he slyly says, Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? We get the impression that we shouldn't be concerned with the meaning of the poem, so haha, let's just pretend that that's not what we're doing for whatever English class we're taking, and please continue watching the video. Also, a like would be very much appreciated. Let's also make a brief note that in section 3 he says, urge and urge and urge, always the procreant urge of the world. Yep, more desires. Remember the last section? He suggests that the desire for life is the desire of the world, and since we are the world, it is defining us. He also talks about himself taking a bath and admiring every organ and attribute, and that not an inch nor a particle of an inch is vile. He feels no sense of shame for what was considered the dirty parts of the body. He once again shows himself ahead of his time and exotic for the 19th century. In section 5, Whitman has a steamy encounter with his own soul. At the end of this part, he also says that he considers God not to be a separate entity, but rather a part of himself. At the time, most definitely blasphemy. In section 6, a child asked him, "What is grass?" And he speculates on its meaning. Do keep in mind that the poetry collection is called Leaves of Grass, and we also come back to his interpretations of grass quite a lot because there's quite a few. It could be the child of other plants, God's handkerchief, hope, or a method of writing that is there for everyone, so communication is for everyone. It comes back to this idea of equality for all a lot, so do feel free to note it down, and we'll come back to that eventually. Section 7 really expanded the poet and his personality even more. He says that, "Has anyone supposed it lucky to be born? I hasten to inform him or her. It is just as lucky to die, and I know it." But he also says that people are not limited to their body, and he says, I quote, "One can undrape. You are not guilty to me, nor stale, not discarded." He won't judge your character based on what you look like nude, which is what we like to hear. Then later sections, they sound more innocent. He's just enjoying the world like a child. He's like going out, looking at the wonders, all of that. The quote to use is from section 8. "I lift the gauze and look a long time, and silently brush away flies with my hand, or I peeringly view from the top." I have no idea why my voice sounds like that when I start to read Whitman. I don't know. It's very performative. Now, section 11 is mentioned quite a lot because of its sexual nature, but also on the speculation of whether or not Whitman had homoerotic feelings. He said before that he is all of us and all of our personalities, so when it is said that a young woman is watching 28 young men bathe and wishing that she could join them, her expression of her gaze, of her watching them, it's very intimate. So it raises a question, does Walt Whitman wish he was watching with these men as well, or not? Section 18 is devoted to the images of war. Walt Whitman was part of the Civil War, so this section is very likely influenced by his experiences. Now, let's go back to equality that I mentioned before. Section 19 couldn't make it more clear that Whitman doesn't care who you are, not have a single person slighted or left away. All are welcome. In other sections, he gets real emotional with the earth and nature, like real emotional, if you know what I mean. In section 22, he says, and I quote, "Dash me with amorous wet, I can repay you. To the sea." He says this, to the sea. The topic of sexuality is an interesting one to write a paper on. I think it's a metaphor for his union with nature. And it would be great to explore just how exactly humans interact with Earth in Whitman's case. His intimate nature view is prominent everywhere. In section 24, Whitman continues to worship the human body. We talked about how ahead he was of his time, how radical this was considered before. And another famous line is, "Unscrew the locks from the doors, unscrew the doors themselves from their jambs." He's being radical in trying to unlock this door, but then he just gets angry and breaks the whole thing. Time for change is the opinion he holds. Well, so far I haven't encountered anyone else so willing to get down with the sea. In the next few couple of sections, there's more about touch and thinly veiled references. He has a whole crisis about whether or not the touch is getting out of control. He talks about himself bringing himself over the edge, and I think we all know what that means. From now on, I'll skip over the rest of these parts. I've mentioned enough, you get the gist. Section 32 talks about animals and how they don't feel religious guilt. He dislikes that religion focuses heavily on sin and kind of shames the human body. The human body is natural, so he hates that people shy away from it because they have a duty to God. Just paraphrasing, this is not my quote by the way, just paraphrasing from what he said. Okay, so I'll start to summarize now. I realized there's about 20 more sections, but I also realized that we're all on a time press. But if you do have any questions, please do leave a comment. I'll try my best to reply. Also, if you want me to talk to you about some book, it doesn't have to be a classic, but I don't know, if you have an exam on a classic, I will read it and get a video for you done ASAP. Just please let me know about a week before, because I need time to read the book and obviously make my notes on my study guide for it. So in section 42, Whitman kind of goes over the idea that the body and the soul are one thing and that one should not feel shame for it. He says that nothing, not God, is greater to one than oneself is. It's not that he doesn't believe in God, he just doesn't like the idea of God being one thing. He sees it everywhere. He hears and beholds God in every object, yet understands God not in the least. A famous line of this section, and one I really love, is "Let your soul stand cool and composed before a million universes." He also says that in the faces of men and women, I see God, and in my own face, in the glass. Section 49, he says, "And as to you, death, and your bitter hue of morality, it is idle to try to alarm me." Another famous line is section 51. "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself, brackets. I am large, I contain multitudes." He embraces contradiction. He's everything. It is natural for him to have all these things inside of him. In this section, the past and present wilt, so the reader has the sense of time running out. And in section 52, and the day is ending and there's hints at death and dying of old age, which I guess is natural causes, also links in. Finally, everything ties in when he hints that he's gone and says, "If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. You will hardly know who I am or what I mean, but I shall be in good health to you nevertheless." So there you go, the most important aspect of Song of Myself. My original plan was to go over each theme individually, but I've realized that that would take way longer than 15 minutes. And also, I've done that anyway when I was talking about the sections and highlighting the quotes, and yeah, like I said, this video assumes that you read it, so I hope that this helped nevertheless. Instead, let me just summarize some topics that you can talk about. Walt Whitman and democracy, sexuality in relation to nature, whether or not the poem is egocentric, what is God and its role, where is God, religion in general, is his gaze on the world humble, his being Walt Whitman, cosmic issues and possibilities, where can we find the truth in the world, and finally, how radical was the poem considering its time. Finally, I'd like to conclude this video with three interesting and perhaps helpful tidbits on Walt Whitman. So the first being, just in case, remember that he was born in 1819 and died in 1892, and he was considered one of the greatest poets of the American Romantic movement. 2. Some speculate that leaves on grass actually means pages of crap, because leaves as in pages and grass used to mean something useless, something without words. So if you didn't enjoy the collection, I guess that you could say that the author was self-deprecating, and why should you read it if even he thought that it was pages of crap. But I didn't tell you that. No, just kidding. It's actually a good collection. I hope you enjoyed. I've left a link to my review on Instagram in the description box in case you want to check it out, but it's a very broad review because there's no spoilers, but you already know a good portion of this book. Song of Myself is about this many pages of this book, so you already know a good portion of it. 3. He once met and maybe kissed Oscar Wilde. After the playwright visited Whitman, he said that he still has Whitman's kiss on his lips, which I think is just adorable. But figuratively or literally, we'll never know, and I'm just mentioning this so that you can talk about Whitman and sexuality. And I suppose how he was relatively ahead of his time, if he and Oscar Wilde agreed to publicly state this. Hope you like this video. Please support me in any sort of engagement on YouTube. It only takes 1 second and it helps more people discover my account. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Bye!